Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We've been off the air for a couple of weeks due to some pretty exciting stuff going on, like my daughter getting married and taking my business coaching and consulting practice full time. But thanks for being patient, and this episode was well worth the wait. This is a wonderful interview with Noelle Smit, who is co-founder of Teamgage. Now, Teamgage are a software company who are helping organisations and their staff drive really positive culture and staff engagement. Now, some of you may be thinking that culture is that fluffy stuff that the HR department talks about, but I challenge you to have a listen to this episode and not do something about it in your own business. There are some really great themes that run through this interview, including the enormous negative impacts a bad culture can have on employee wellbeing. We also talk about how failure isn't the end, it's often just a blip in the road, and why it's important to start your business with a problem, not a product. My name is Ben Campbell, and this is The Self-Made Theory. Welcome, Noelle, to The Self-Made Theory.
Thank you.
Great to finally be here. It's taken us a little bit of time to juggle our agendas, and we both got sick in a space of a couple of weeks,
yes.
Which having the cold and flu on a podcast is not the greatest idea.
No, it's not ideal.
So here we are, both healthy, having a conversation.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So you're one of the co-founders of Teamgage.
Yes.
How about you give us your elevator pitch for Teamgage?
I'd love to. So Teamgage is a software-led solution that helps large organisations create a culture of continuous improvement. We do that through our software. Employees submit anonymous feedback. The feedback is aggregated into team reports, and those teams share those reports in their team meetings. They talk about what's working, what isn't. They come up with ideas and actions that they log in the system, and they go away and do the process all over again. So they can come back and say, this worked, this didn't, and try new things. The idea that they're continuously improving and they're owning that process themselves. And that happens at every level in an organisation, from operational and field teams right up to executive leadership team.
So for people who are listening, who've been part of an organisation that does as I have in large corporations and smaller ones, that does an annual employee engagement survey or employee feedback survey, etc. This is not a new idea. So what are Teamgage doing differently than those traditional methods?
So, you're right. Employee engagement surveys have been around for decades. The problem with them is that they're one way. So you collect a heap of data as an organisation, and it's usually left up to a very small HR team to then drive organisational-wide initiatives based on the results of those surveys and produce change. And we hear over and over again, almost unanimously from clients and organisations in the market, that the process doesn't work. It's really hard to wade through all that data and create organisational-wide change from one department that's quite unrelated to the operational side of the business. So Teamgage, it's the same survey process, but we give the ownership back to the teams themselves to look at their data, look at what's working, what isn't. They own their own conversation around, well, why don't we try this? They're empowered then to try that and see if it's working or if it's not. So, they can be quite agile in their approach to their own team and dynamics. And the results roll up as well. So obviously there's some things that are systemic across the business and do require HR or senior leadership to drive change and action. So you're still getting that process with Teamgage, but we're really putting the onus on the action back across the business. So managers and teams across the business can own that process themselves. And
I imagine it's relatively easy to access. So if I can, if I'm an employee who's out on the road, out in the field, remote location, etc., I'm providing my feedback just as easy as as if I was sitting in the office at a desk.
Yeah, that's right. So you just need a device and an internet connection, so people can submit on their smartphones or tablets, certainly their desktop PCs or laptops. And the same with the report access as well. So it's all online software. Yes.
Cool. So now we've talked about the what.
Yes.
What's the why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Look, I think going back to the very beginning, the why started from myself and Ben as co-founders working for large organisations. and experiencing firsthand a team environment that wasn't very positive. In fact, it was quite negative.
So you were part of the team, or were you leading the team?
No, I was just an employee. So this was early on in my career. And it was, I guess it wasn't a good team culture, and it was pretty pervasive, the impact that had on me. It sort of builds up over time when every day you're going into a job where there's like communication's hard, things that should be quite basic to talk about or raise, or, you want to suggest an idea, all of that is shut down. Going to that environment day after day wears you down, and I experienced that personally.
Can you talk about what the personal impact on you was?
Yeah, so look, I guess it starts quite mild, Sunday nights, thinking about work for the next week, the drudgery, rather than it being exciting and enjoyable and feeling like you're being challenged and empowered to take on these challenges. So it starts quite mild, but I guess the longer I stayed there, the worse it became. So I started hating my time at work. I'd come home at night and have maybe a few hours of relief until it started being wind down for bed, and it would all start up again. The sort of, I guess looking back now, anxiety around the next day, and it built up. So it kept getting worse until it was affecting my life outside of work. So I was quite highly strung. Weekends weren't really relaxing. I was trying to decompress for the week, and I'd barely get there before I'd be worked up again for the week ahead. And then I got to the point where I was like bursting into tears at family dinners, not because of what was happening at the family dinner, but just this kind of constant state of, I guess, burden that was on me. So, it should never have gotten that bad.
But you're not on your own in feeling that way.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's a lot of people listening. I've been there. A lot of people have been in that exact same spot.
Yeah.
Or a similar spot.
And I think that sort of comes back to this why. So I experienced this personally. I probably had a slightly worse personal impact than Ben had, but he had a similar thing where he was in an environment, in a workplace that was a great company to work for, but it became really hard for him to stay there and feel like he could grow and develop. And we both ended up leaving those companies, and they were great places to work in terms of their brand and what they could have offered in terms of a career path. But we went on to other things, and that was also a pattern where we were working, that there was really high turnover. Then, we went away and we'd, talk to friends at barbecues, and the stories I'd hear from my friends about the manager they were working with or the people around them. And it's really common, much more common than it should be. And I guess that was all part of why we decided to tackle this problem, because, personal stories with us and our immediate network, we saw that this was very common, and the solutions in the market that were trying to improve teams and culture weren't really having an impact. Then when we went away and did market research, that just sort of validated what we were seeing and hearing, and that this is actually a global problem. Disengagement is rife, and it's costing organisations billions of dollars every year globally. And not only that, Gallup research has showed that in the last decade, employee engagement levels haven't really changed in the Western world. So certainly what we're trying to do at the moment as a marketplace isn't working.
So imagine there's companies listening now that are thinking, well, it's not costing me billions of dollars.
No.
But there is a real material impact on a company when their employees aren't engaged in terms of productivity, staff turnover.
Yeah.
Have you got any statistics around what that looks like for a company?
Yeah. I'm terrible for remembering numbers, so on the spot I probably can't give you the exact figures, but there is a heap of research out there that directly ties even bottom line and profit to employee engagement. Disengaged employees, there's talk now about presenteeism in the workplace, where people are physically present but not mentally present, not being engaged and productive. I mean, that's just obvious, right? That if you've got a team that is not engaged and really focused 100%, what sort of productivity level are you going to get out of them? And even if you could adjust that by 1, 2, 3% over thousands of employees, that's clearly going to have an impact on productivity. But yeah, culture is all pervasive in organizations. So there's lots of research around the way it drives better talent to the organization. So a good culture and employees that are engaged attract better talent as well. So you're attracting better employees, you're keeping the good employees. Good culture weeds out bad employees because there's a really strong cohesive team and culture that they don't want to be a part of. And then on top of that, they do produce more. They're better collaborators, they are more productive, they're better advocates to your customers in terms of customer service. And all of that translates into profit margins as well.
Absolutely. And people often talk about culture as being one of those things. Well, I'm not a tech startup company. I don't need that hippie, let's play ping pong at lunchtime culture.
Yes.
But every organisation has a culture.
Yes.
It's either good, bad or indifferent, but every organisation has a culture.
Yeah. So that's one of the many myths that we're out there trying to dispel, is that culture is for startups with ping pong tables. That's the classic stereotype. And, we're very adamant that that is not a culture. A ping pong table's awesome and it might support a good culture, but that in itself is not culture. Culture is the way that we work together and interact. It's the value system that is accepted within an organisation. It's the, those unspoken rules that we make decisions within the bounds of.
It's the behaviours we accept, the behaviours we walk past. All those are part of a culture.
And you're absolutely right that every organisation has a culture. And if you don't think much about culture, or that it's maybe not relevant for you, I'd probably suggest that maybe it's not a great culture, because cultures happen whether you actively create them or not. And chances are, if you're not being really proactive about what your culture is going to be and being consistent with that, chances are it's being created on its own and it's maybe not the best it could be.
So you realised there was a big problem. You'd experienced it personally, both of you. Now, some may not know that Ben and yourself are a husband and wife team.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. I'll just get that one on record.
Yes.
So you've both been part of organisations that weren't doing it that well and that had material impacts on you.
Yes.
Did some research, realised that this was a global problem.
Yep.
What did you do next?
Well, there was a little bit of time that passed. So we didn't go straight from where we had worked into Teamgage. We had another software product that we had created and were built and were selling and I guess managing in the market. So that kept us busy for a little while. We sort of fell into that product and building that. It wasn't something that we sort of planned out from the start.
How do you fall into building a software product?
It actually started with Ben's final year project at university.
Okay.
So that's how it sort of got, fell into final year project. He built a piece of software. Well, the project was to plan and do all the, planning and documentation side of it. He then took it a step further and built it, and it became a product.
Cool.
And expanded out from there. And so that kept us busy for probably a good 5 years with a lot of focus just on that. In the meantime, I guess the market research and these stories with our friends kept happening, and I guess it was something it sort of never went away, this thought and this conversation about the workplace and culture. As we were starting to grow in our own company, we were experiencing it firsthand. It was something that was niggling at us, and that probably comes back to this why, that there was a real strong personal connection with the problem, and we sort of couldn't let it go. When we kept hearing about the problem in the market, we were like, there's got to be a better way. So, it was probably about 5 years after leaving our various workplaces and having our own company, we decided to try and build something. It wasn't called Teamgage at the time. It was a slightly different variation, but we decided to use some of the money that we had and build out a first version, an MVP, a minimum viable product. And we did. We built the first version.
And who'd you test it on?
So strangely enough, we tested it on a company in the US.
Hang on. Net new product to our overseas market.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a story about why.
Hey, I love a story. Stories are good.
So right before we built the MVP for Teamgage, we got a bit more serious about the idea, had put some planning down on paper, but that still hadn't built anything. We came across an advertisement, I think it was online. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was for a trip, a sports and business, like a sports and tech tour from Australia to Silicon Valley and San Francisco. And Ben and I are huge NBA fans, so basketball. And this tour was being run by Andrew Bogut's manager, Andrew Bogut, if people that don't follow basketball, was an Australian who was a number 1 draft pick in the NBA. Yeah, so this tour was happening, and it was to take you through Silicon Valley tech companies as well, meet some investors, and go to some NBA games with the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors.
Do they still run that trip? How do I get on that?
Unfortunately not. Yeah, I don't know. It was amazing. It was brilliant. We just were like, wow, our two big worlds and loves and passions combining. Let's do it. So we went on this trip. Again, how we landed ourselves in that situation is just, one of those amazing moments in life. But so we went to the US. On that trip, we met some investors, and we probably didn't really understand the venture capital game, if I can call it that, at that time. We just had an idea and were talking to them about what we were going to try and do. So it was very, very early stage. And I guess through that process, we met one person who fell in love with the idea and our approach to solving it. And we kept in conversation with him, and he's become an advisor to us. So it was through him that we landed our first beta customer in the US, and that's how that happened.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, so we ran a beta trial in the US, and it went horribly.
Why did it go horribly?
So our first version, and again, I look back now, what were we thinking? But it was desktop installation, so it wasn't online software. We had cartoon avatars as part of the interface that they could customize. And what would happen was it would be installed on their desktop, and these avatars would pop up and wave at them when it was time to submit feedback. And it was very polarizing. So some people did love it. Yeah. And some people hated it. They're like, why are these cartoon characters on my screen waving at me? I'm trying to get a job done here. And unless they submitted, they'd keep popping up. So it was
just to annoy them.
Yeah, it was
even
like,
further.
Let's annoy our users as much as we can. And yeah, so it was a really brutal piece of feedback we got, but they're our
the whole
customers.
idea, right?
We needed to hear that, yeah. And to be honest, it was probably one of the best mistakes we could have made, is we learnt more through that process. And it wasn't just about the product. There was a lot about the way we supported them, the way we launched them. Yeah, we learnt more through that process than probably our whole sort of first 2 years in business.
So when that happened, and I don't like the word failure or mistake,
yeah,
because it implies some finality around it. I much prefer, the learning that comes from that challenge. But when that happened and it didn't go as planned, did you ever think, we're on the wrong road here, we should just give up?
Oh, we definitely had those thoughts. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Like, we were pretty excited about this. We're in Adelaide, we've got a US customer trialing it, and they were quite positive about, if this goes well, they'll turn into our first customer. And you could see the path forward from there. We'll just get another customer and another, and we'll be global, and wow, this is going to be great. So yeah, to be sort of told, uninstall it as quick as possible, like, we don't want to see this ever again. Yeah, it was like, okay, we've sunk our own money into this, and essentially we've just lost all that money right now.
And it's not easy doing business with companies overseas, time zones and other challenges, right?
Right. So that was one of our other learnings, is maybe your first you need to be a bit closer to your first customer. But yeah, so we definitely, like, it hit us hard. And yeah, I guess we had thoughts of, well, what do we do next? Are we done here? I think for us, those thoughts maybe didn't last too long, because the feedback was all around the way we had delivered the solution, not that the problem didn't exist or that it couldn't be solved. So, Ben talks about that phrase of being incredibly positive and just having this undying, almost naive belief that you can do this, but then having brutal honesty about the current reality of your situation. I think that is absolutely what we did in that situation, where we said, well, this has not worked. We're not going to pretend that there was anything good about that product, but the problem still exists.
Of course.
And it's still waiting for someone to come along and solve it. And I think we can give it another go. So yeah, that probably didn't hit us too hard. It was, a bit of a knock to our confidence, but we probably needed that. And
I think it's an important lesson, I think, for anybody, and whether you're in a paid job or whether you're building a company, when you understand the why and the purpose that sits behind what you're doing, then the failures along the way and the mistakes along the way and the challenges along the way are really just blips in the road. Whereas if you're just rocking up to earn a paycheck and you don't understand that, or if you're just in it to make some money, then you will give up. When the tough times come, and they will come, it's easier to say, you know what, I'm just not into this.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things we've done wrong. There's more things we've done wrong than right. But one of the things we did right was we started with a problem as opposed to an idea for a product. So the problem was still there. Our product wasn't right, but the problem still existed.
Exactly.
So it was, and that from day one, that's what we were focusing on. So that probably made it a lot easier for us to get back up and go again, as opposed to if we just started with, oh, this is a good product, this little character and avatars, let's do that, and people will pay for it. I think focusing on the problem you're solving is helpful, because as you say, then you hit road bumps and you go, well, is the problem still there? Is that still what we're focused on?
So version 2. No, you're still at MVP, weren't you? So you're still at beta, right? So
I think the story probably gets a bit worse from here. Yes, beta hadn't worked. We probably went into a little bit of a holding pattern. Well, not a holding pattern, but a bit of a, let's just sit on that. Let's think about it.
Because you're still running the other software company at this point, aren't you?
That's right, which still needed the majority of our focus. So I don't know what the time frame was, but we basically went back to the drawing board and thought up a new version, and based on the learnings from the first version. So we got rid of all the cartoony aspects of it, even though we loved that and thought that was a lot of fun, realising that these are professional environments, and also respect for the problem, that this is a really serious problem. Culture's real and pervasive and can make or break a business, and we're not here to mess about. And so I think, I think there was some branding issues that we had got wrong initially. So we sort of rebranded and became Teamgage.
Which is a great name, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Did you come up with that yourselves, or did you have a branding?
No, we came up with that. I have a photo of, the whiteboard with all the ridiculous names we were brainstorming.
Awesome.
Teamgage was a nice combination of, it spoke to what we were, and the domain name was available. So that's probably about as much thought as went into it.
You'd have to pay someone an extortionate amount of money to get it. Brilliant, even
exactly.
Better.
So we went and we built our second version, which is very similar to the current version we have in the market. It's essentially the MVP of the version we have now. But
so what did you do around the branding piece and the user interface. Was it still user interface designed by you? Did you?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, it was. Ben and we had another designer at the time working for us internally were the leads on that. They worked together based on the learnings we'd had from our first version, stripped it all back and sort of started from the ground up in what's an MVP, minimum viable product, but we took that approach to user interface as well. Like, obviously our user interface was one of the really negative sticking points of our product to start with. So we wanted to kind of keep it as lean as possible in terms of, we didn't want people in our product for very long. We wanted them out of Teamgage for as much as they possibly could be. So everything around our user interface was lowest touch, the most simplest way to interact with it. We talk about now, you can be in and out within 20 seconds and have submitted or viewed a report. And that's kind of become a core foundation of our branding and our user interface, is that low touch 20-second interfaces. So yeah, it was just a lot of learning, reading online about user interface, user experience, reading books. There's a lot of information out there if you're hungry about a topic and want to learn. But yes, we built that ourselves and thought we'd built a really great product. Obviously wanted to get our next trial and our next users in Australia and hopefully in Adelaide, so we can sort of sit next to them and really talk to them face to face, watch them using it, do all the things you're supposed to do. And then discovered that we didn't have any networks in the market we were trying to sell into. Ben and I didn't have HR or people and culture backgrounds. We had very, very different backgrounds from that industry. We weren't connected. We didn't understand how to sell to enterprise. So that was probably our second big hurdle at the start, was we had done the classic thing people do and built a product and didn't know how to sell it.
And so it's not an uncommon story.
Yeah.
So the typical organisation that you're pitching to, or that Teamgage sort of fits into? Yeah. What sort of size organisation?
Yeah, we talk about corporates with 1,000 employees or more. We work with much smaller organisations, but in terms of what we build, what we put into our product, what we market, is all around those, large enterprise organisations with thousands of employees. And that's because there are a lot of products out there for much smaller organisations that service this need and this problem. But we believe the biggest gap and the biggest pain point is in those really large ones where you've got lots of levels of management. So you have that kind of middle manager space where people and culture can often get lost.
And I imagine in those organisations, it's not just one culture.
No, that's right.
You can have multiple cultures in, this team in engineering is completely different to the team in marketing, which is different from the team in sales, which is different from, team XYZ.
And we see that now with our clients that are live. So there'll be areas of the business doing amazing in terms of the numbers in Teamgage, and then at other areas that are really struggling. But that transparency across the business is helpful, right? Because HR know where they need to focus their support, executive leadership know where they need to provide more input and direction, what leaders need more skills and capability development. That in itself is a win, just to be able to highlight those areas.
So you and I see that as a win, and I see that as a win because I love this stuff, right?
Yes.
My roles in senior and middle management, I loved getting that feedback. But not everybody's like me.
True.
How much pushback do you get when you're working inside of an organisation as you're rolling this out?
Yeah. Oh.
For people to game it, right? Because I've known middle managers over the years that say to their staff, right, so it's really important that we've got this survey thing coming up, this annual survey, so make sure you rate it really high on this stuff because otherwise we could all be into trouble. Right?
Yeah. So that tends not to happen. So feedback in Teamgage is anonymous, and it's funny, I think at the start some organisations are concerned that their people won't believe it's anonymous, that they're worried people won't be honest because they'll see it as, be honest, but then if you say something bad, we'll know who you are. So we do a lot of work initially to educate users that we're Teamgage, we're separate to your organisation, and it is anonymous, and, we have a whole, I guess, education piece about how important that is to us, because we sort of see ourselves, we're not on only the organisation side, this sort of faceless organisation, and we're not only on the employees side, we're on sort of everyone's side. We want the employees to have a great experience and to get, better management from their leaders. But we also want the organisation to succeed and to perform better. And I think being maybe an external third party helps us position ourselves that way. But what we see is that the areas where the managers are like that, they get low scores. They do, and they can't hide because the results roll up. And that's, I guess, part of the point of Teamgage, is to highlight those managers that have maybe been able to hide. Not that this is that sounds like we're out to get them. It's not. Our clients use Teamgage because they want to support leadership and management. And the role of a manager is changing. It's changing rapidly. So people that maybe traditionally have been good managers, as the workplace changes and the role of the manager changes, we all need to upskill and relearn some things. And Teamgage is there to support that process.
Obviously now you've been on this product for a while.
Yes.
I know you've had a number of very successful implementations because I've spoken to a few organisations, and I've seen it myself firsthand.
Yep.
And you've got a great demo on your website too for those that are listening and want to have a bit of a look. Have there been times where you've gone into an organisation that the senior leadership or the HR manager or somebody who's really keen to engage this, and the organisation just hasn't been ready?
Yeah.
They're just not ready to take that level of feedback and engagement from their team.
Look, we have had that. It's thankfully it's less common than it is common. But definitely there are organisations where, I guess the leadership team, they tend to be older organisations where, they might have executive leadership that have been in that company or that industry for decades, and who, may not be used to things changing quickly. Yeah, they don't see the need. They still think of culture as the soft and fluffy thing. That definitely exists, but that's part of our mission as well, and our job is to educate those people. We firmly believe that companies that have leadership teams with those thoughts are going to struggle to keep up as our workforces are changing, as we see the millennials and even the next, think about the next 10 years and Gen Z entering the workplace. They are demanding a different environment and different management styles, and they pick up and leave if they don't get it. So, we're here to help those organisations that are facing that challenge.
I imagine at the other end of the spectrum, you've got some clients who have just seen amazing results, amazing change in their organisation.
Yeah.
I can see a big smile on your face. You must love that. I mean, that must be great being part of that change.
It's thrilling. It's fantastic. That's why we exist. And, we have organisations that came on board and were scoring high from the start and have kept it up. Despite things changing around them. So, they've certainly used the product to maintain that and try and edge it up even more. And that's great. What's even better is the organisations that have come in and started at a point where they weren't happy with and have seen the change and the results improve. The best thing our team loves is we hear a lot from the decision makers, obviously, because we have our most direct relationship with the people who run Teamgage within the organisation. But when we hear from employees or managers across the business about the impact it's had for them, that's pretty special.
I'll bet it is.
I'll
bet it is.
It's fantastic to hear, and we love hearing those stories.
So looking back on your journey, so how many years has it been now? Since the original beta.
So the first beta was 2014.
Okay, so we're recording this sort of later, 2018, so 4 years.
Yes.
So looking back on that 4-year journey, like any organisation, I imagine, they've been incredible highs, and you can see the smile on your face when you think about those. But I imagine there's been a bunch of challenges too. Are there any that you look at and go, oh my gosh, if I'd only known that earlier, or if I'd only been able to change that, would you go back and change anything?
That's a tough question, because I always sort of have a philosophy of no regrets, right? Because you did your best with the information you had at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I had the information I had today, I would have made a different decision. So it's hard to sort of say you regret anything. But I think there have been some mistakes we made along the way that have impacted people. And that's, I think Ben and I carry that with us to this day.
So when you say people, are you talking about staff, or are you talking about customers? Or?
Staff. So when we couldn't sell our product, that went on for longer than it should. We tried a few different paths to market and they really didn't work for us. And as a result, we had to lay some people off early. And that was because of our decisions that we'd made on the path to, we believed we would be able to generate revenue faster than we could. So I think the only thing I wish I could go back and change is those decisions that impacted people. So, we hire wonderful people, and I guess we had to make 2 people redundant was, asking Ben this now, he'd probably say the same thing, but for me it was the worst day on the job ever, because it wasn't their fault. They were good at their job, and I wish we still had them now because we could use them. But yeah, that's, this is people's lives. Employment is people's lives, and that was, I wish I could change that. I wish I could go back and I'd do whatever I could to keep them.
So does that impact your decision making today in terms of the way you run your company, the decisions you make? Yes,
definitely. We have a team of 13 people now, and the majority of them have children, and we can't mess around with their lives and their futures. So that's probably one thing. Yes, we learnt that lesson early. We don't ever want to repeat that, we probably sometimes our team might say we employ people too slowly because we're very busy, but
but it's for good reason.
Yeah, we don't want to employ people and have to lay them off. I'm not saying that this is business and downturns can happen. We want it to be for things outside of anyone's control, as opposed to we were just too ambitious or too aggressive with our growth strategy. And that's definitely something that Ben and I are very mindful of.
It's a nice thing to hear from a founder and owner of an organisation, because employees will often look at business owners and go, they're just in it for the money. They don't care about me. The decisions that they make are all about them and what goes in their back pocket. And it's lovely to hear. And I know that there are plenty of other business owners that have that same philosophy.
Yeah.
It really is nice.
Yeah, it's funny because I think Ben and I would be earning more money if we were out. We shut it all down and went and worked elsewhere. Yeah, it's definitely not for the money. That's a wonderful side benefit, and certainly hope that will continue. But it's about, I guess we're focused on that problem and solving it, and particularly because it's people's lives being impacted. It's, we spend more time at work than at home with our loved ones. So we want to try and change work environments to be places people love going to and are flourishing and thriving. We don't think of work like that, but why shouldn't it be a place where we're challenged and we're growing and we're empowered and we enjoy ourselves?
So can I assume that you're not the plumber who has leaky pipes in his own house, and you actually use Teamgage yourselves inside your organisation?
You should ask my staff that. We use Teamgage. We call ourselves hyper users. We use it every week. We're submitting feedback. We end our week every Friday afternoon with a big team meeting, which we're at a size now where that's whole of company. So that's really nice. And we talk about the results. And I know that's not viable for all our clients, but I think it's a brilliant way to end the week. We stop and we reflect on what we've achieved, the challenges that we faced, what didn't work, and we talk about, what we can change next week to avoid that challenge or that problem, or, what we can do more of to see more of the good wins and things. So it's a brilliant way to end our week. And I don't know, it's hard for me. I think we've got a great culture, but it's my company. That's a bit biased. But I think we do. We change our Teamgage metrics every quarter. So we change what we're measuring and getting feedback on every quarter. And
so why do you do that?
I guess we move fast. So we work on quarterly goals and milestones. So within 90 days, we'll have a real clear focus, and that focus will change. So we try to change some of the metrics to be based on those goals, and some of them just, are more ongoing things about culture and how we're communicating and supporting each other. So we do that, but things change fast in our business, so we think our metrics should too.
So what's next for Teamgage?
Things
that you can talk about.
We're going to keep growing. We have barely scratched the surface with customers. And
have you worked out how to sell to them yet?
We have, thank goodness. Yeah, I think we're not too bad at that now. But yes, we had to learn that. But yes, we know how to sell to them. So
let's talk about that, because I think that's a really big piece for a lot of organisations. A great product or idea on its own will just stay a great product or idea on the shelf.
Yep.
So what did you do when you worked out that you didn't know who to sell to or how to sell to them?
So, we tried to connect with people that did know. So we went through a couple of different, business models for selling. So once we realised we couldn't do it ourselves, we tried to bring in someone who had networks through HR. Again, we'd got it wrong because they were more of a recruitment background, didn't really understand complexities, but just some of the nuances of people and culture as opposed to just the recruitment part. Then we went through going, all right, well, that didn't work either. Let's have resellers. Let's get people that are already working in this space, selling services to sell our product. That's a great idea. How easy is that? And I think through that process, we had some companies that were really interested, but it's hard to get them to make your first sale. They're looking for the quick and easy wins and the products that sell the quickest. And when you don't have a customer in the market, that's really hard to get that first sale. So I think we never really got the traction there. But luckily through that process, we met Richard, who is still with us today, who fell in love with our product and in a lot of ways came and rescued us from our own naivety. And he asked, he was like, can I come on board? Let's do this. And really resonated with what we were trying to do. Was really aligned with our vision. He could see things changing in the market. So that's probably what we did, was we brought in someone who knew what they were doing. And in addition to that...
But not just knew what they were doing, but they actually bought into what you were delivering.
Yeah.
That's an important factor here, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. So, that's a big part of our recruitment now with everyone, is that they've got to care about Teamgage and what it's solving, what it's doing. They have to care because we're on a journey, and someone who was brilliant skills-wise but maybe didn't resonate with our problem, we would actually not hire.
Good.
Because it's part of building a culture, right, is having everyone aligned on the big vision with eyes up. When things get rough day to day, eyes up on that big vision. We're all in this together, working towards that goal.
Yep.
Yeah, that was huge. I think Richard set that tone as, the first employee, and everyone else to date has been part of that vision.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think the other thing we did as well was we got a sales mentor. So we got introduced to someone who had retired to Adelaide but spent most of his career working in enterprise sales, and he was the ex-VP of sales for Oracle in Eastern Europe, software sales for Oracle. So really understood selling software to enterprise, because even though Richard understood a lot of the mechanics, he'd never sold software as a service, and there was still a lot of things we didn't know. And we brought him in as a mentor to work with us quite closely. He'd help us set our targets. He'd coach us on how to work towards those targets. And so, learning, just trying to be open to learning from whoever we could was a big part of it. And making all the mistakes as well is a great way to learn.
It certainly is. That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. It's a great story, and I think it's a fantastic product. And I'm really excited to see how your future pans out, because I think it's going to be a great one. So
let's hope so.
Well done.
Thank you.
Cheers. What continually fascinates me about founders of great companies is that they don't do it for the money. In almost every founder I've met or worked with, there's an underlying reason why they're on their journey that doesn't relate to money. It's either about solving a problem they've experienced in their own life, providing a product or service that taps into a greater social good, or just good old plain helping people out. You can find Teamgage at www.teamgage.com. There's also a great demo of their software you can check out. You'll also find them on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can find the details in my show notes or on my website, www.theselfmadetheory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your favourite podcast platform. You have no idea how much it means to us if you rate or comment, or ideally both, or drop us an email at podcast@theselfmadetheory.com. Until next time, keep innovating, overcoming, and prospering.